I never thought my own family would go to such extremes to get what they wanted. But when my father's so-called heart attack turned out to be a lie, I realized my life had been controlled by their greed for far too long. The moment I walked into that hospital and saw an empty room, I knew everything was a setup. But what now? Before starting this story, if you are listening from USA, please leave a comment with number 9. And if you are from another country, please leave the name of your lovely country. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to listen to more stories. The shrill ring of my phone cut through the stillness of my London apartment, pulling me from a restless sleep. I fumbled for the device, squinting at the screen. Taliesin. My younger sister never called this late, especially not when I was so far away. The time difference should have made it impossible, but here we were. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the fog of sleep. Hello. My voice was thick, sluggish with exhaustion. Zerina. Oh my God, Zerina. Taliesin's voice cracked, her words laced with panic. I could hear her trying to hold back tears. It's Dad. He's had a heart attack, a really bad one. They don't know if he's going to make it. My body went cold, every muscle stiffening with shock. The room felt smaller, the walls suddenly pressing in on me as I tried to process what she was saying. I'd always known that my father's health wasn't as robust as it used to be. He was 63 now, and while he'd always been active, heart attacks didn't discriminate. But this was different. When did it happen? Is he in surgery? I demanded, sitting up quickly. My hands shook as I tried to steady my breathing. I could already feel the adrenaline kicking in. They rushed him to Hartford General an hour ago. Mom's a wreck. Eric's with her. But Dad, he was asking for you before they took him back. The doctors said we should prepare for the worst. Taliesin's voice wavered, the weight of her words pressing down on me. Without thinking, I jumped out of bed, the familiar coldness of panic creeping through me. I'll be on the next flight out. Tell him I'm coming. My throat tightened, the words coming out strained. I hung up the phone, my mind racing. The next few hours felt like a blur packing clothes into a suitcase, booking the earliest flight I could find, but no matter how quickly I moved, the reality of what was happening felt like it was always one step ahead of me. I stood in the center of my apartment, my fingers trembling as I looked around. Everything that had taken me years to build my career, my life in London was now just a fleeting image, ready to be left behind. The smell of fresh coffee still lingered in the air, and the sunlight filtered through the high windows, casting long shadows on the walls. This apartment had been my sanctuary, a place where I had poured my soul into my work, a place where every corner felt like a testament to my success. But now, it felt empty. I grabbed my phone again, dialing the airline for the earliest flight to Connecticut. The operator on the other end sounded almost robotic, a far cry from the frantic, disoriented thoughts swirling inside my head. I needed to get to the airport. I needed to be there, to see him, to make sure he was okay. My father, the man who had always been my biggest supporter, the one who'd stood up for me when I chose fashion over the family business. I couldn't believe that I was now about to leave everything behind, all for a family that had never truly understood me. Just one more thing, I muttered to myself. Standing still in the center of the room, my mind kept replaying Marian's words, her disappointed expression when I told her I had to leave. The Phillips presentation is in 5 days. We've committed to delivering the full spring collection. Do you understand what you're jeopardizing? I closed my eyes, trying to shake off the weight of her disapproval. My mentor, the woman who had helped me rise in the world of fashion, was right to question my decision. After 3 years of grueling work, of sleepless nights and endless deadlines, I was abandoning it all for a family that had never once fully supported my career. I had sacrificed so much for them. But when it came down to it, I was the one who was left behind. It wasn't easy, but the choice was clear. I had to be there. I had to be with my family, even if they had their own agenda. But deep down, I couldn't help but wonder, had I truly been a part of this family all along? I grabbed my suitcase, tossing a few clothes in without much thought. My hands were shaking. Not just from the urgency of the situation, but from the anger and frustration that bubbled beneath the surface. Why did it always feel like I had to choose between them and everything I had built? The taxi ride to the airport felt like it lasted a lifetime. I was physically moving, but my mind stayed back in that apartment. The life I'd created, the success I'd worked so hard for, I was letting it all go. For them. For a lie. The thought gnawed at me, but I pushed it down, determined to do what I thought was right, even if it meant losing everything I had fought for. As I sat in the back of Eric's car, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The familiar streets of our childhood town seemed like they had morphed into something foreign, something I barely recognized. New developments, modern shopping complexes, and sleek office buildings now stood where family farms and apple orchards had once flourished. Walker Real Estate was expanding, but at what cost? Eric, ever the picture of calm, glanced at me as we drove through the town, his face unreadable. "It's all part of Dad's vision," he said, his voice low. "He's always been ahead of the game." I didn't answer. I wasn't so sure anymore. Something felt off. Too much change. Too fast. Our family had always prided itself on its roots, its history in this town. But now, as I looked at the landscape, I saw nothing but the relentless march of progress and profit. What had happened to the family that had once been content with a modest lifestyle? The house came into view, the grand colonial that had been in the family for generations. But even as I saw the familiar white columns and the manicured lawn, a sinking feeling settled in my stomach. The driveway was full of unfamiliar, expensive cars. It wasn't just family gathered here today. Who are all these people? I asked, my voice tight with disbelief. "Everyone's here for Mom," Eric replied, his tone vague as he slowed the car. "We need to support her right now." I knew he was hiding something, but I couldn't put my finger on it. We hadn't spoken much during the drive, and the closer we got to the house, the more I felt like I was walking into a trap. As we pulled into the driveway, I spotted Bernard Whitfield's car. Our family attorney. My heart skipped a beat. "Why is Bernard here?" I demanded. "And is that Uncle Thomas's Porsche?" Eric hesitated before answering, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. "Mom needs all the support she can get," he said again, his words lacking sincerity. "Let's go inside first, then we'll head to the hospital." The lack of urgency in his voice didn't sit well with me. Why weren't we going to the hospital right away if Dad was really in such critical condition? Why were we wasting time at home? I stepped out of the car, my legs shaky as I made my way to the front door. Inside, the house seemed oddly quiet. Despite the crowd of family members, the tension in the air was palpable, and I could feel my heart racing. My mother, perfectly put together as always, sat in the living room with a cup of tea, as if nothing were wrong. Elise, my older sister, was sipping coffee at the table, her face stoic. Bernard sat off to the side, reviewing some papers. "Where's Dad?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and confusion. But no one answered. Suddenly, my father appeared in the doorway, holding a glass of bourbon as though he had just walked in from a normal day at the office. I froze. He didn't look like someone who had just suffered a heart attack. He looked fine. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to me. "Sweetheart, you're home," he said, his voice warm but hollow. I took a step back, every ounce of anger I had been holding back suddenly rushing to the surface. "Don't you dare!" I spat. "What is going on here?" Mom stood up, smoothing her slacks. "I know you're confused." "Zerina," she said, but her words sounded rehearsed. "But we needed you to come home. You've been away for so long, and this was the only way to get you back." The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't about family. This wasn't about love. It was about money. They had lied to me, manipulated me, and now they wanted something from me. "Don't even try to explain," I said, my voice trembling with fury. "You've been using me. You've always been using me." Their silence was the final confirmation. The family I had once trusted was nothing more than a facade built on lies, deceit, and a hunger for wealth. And now, I knew the real reason I was here. They needed my inheritance. The drive to the hospital felt endless, every second stretching out in a cruel test of patience. My mind was a whirlwind, spinning with confusion, anger, and fear. What was going on? Why had my family gone to such lengths to bring me back home? As we pulled up to Hartford General, the familiar gray walls of the building should have brought me comfort, but instead, they felt cold, unwelcoming. I tried to ignore the pit in my stomach as we parked, and I followed Eric through the sliding doors. The hospital was buzzing with activity, but I could feel my pulse quickening with every step. "Where's Dad?" I demanded, my voice tense as I scanned the bustling hallway. Eric's footsteps slowed slightly, his face hard to read. "I don't know," he muttered. "Let's just get to the nurse's station." The nurse at the desk was typing away, seemingly unaware of the tension in the air. Eric leaned over the counter, his voice polite but insistent. "Room 417, he said. "Charles Walker, he was admitted last night. Heart attack." The nurse looked up at him, blinking in confusion. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't have anyone by that name in our system. Room 417 is empty. No patients admitted in the last 24 hours. I froze. The words didn't register at first. Empty. There had to be a mistake. My father, my strong, resilient father, was supposed to be in that room. My heart raced. The room suddenly feeling too small, too tight. "What do you mean?" "Empty," I asked, my voice rising. "My father was admitted last night. He had a heart attack. He was supposed to be in surgery." The nurse raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback by my urgency. "Ma'am, we haven't had any admissions for a heart attack under that name. I've been on shift since yesterday afternoon, and there's no record of anyone by the name of Charles Walker." Eric's face had drained of color, his calm demeanor slipping away as he stammered. This must be a mistake. He was definitely here." "Check again." I couldn't take it anymore. My gut told me something was terribly wrong, but I couldn't process it. The hospital was supposed to be the place where I could find answers, but all I had found so far was confusion and fear. "No, there's no mistake," I said, my voice steady now, but cold. I looked at Eric, the realization dawning. This isn't about Dad, is it? Eric avoided my gaze, and I knew then deep down. I knew. The family emergency wasn't what they had claimed. It was a lie. It was all part of their twisted plan to pull me back, to get me under their control again. "Let's go back to the house," Eric finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. He sounded like a man defeated, knowing the truth, but unable to admit it out loud. I didn't want to go back. I couldn't, not until I had answers. But I knew, even if I didn't want to. I had no choice. The truth was waiting for me, and it was much darker than I had ever imagined. I stood frozen in the hospital hallway, the confusion from the nurse's words still echoing in my mind. No record, no admission. There was no way this could be happening. The lie was unraveling in front of my eyes, and yet, I couldn't bring myself to accept it fully. As Eric and I walked back to the car, the silence between us was heavy, oppressive. My thoughts raced, trying to piece together the fragments of the story I'd been told, trying to make sense of what was happening. There was no heart attack. There was no emergency. My family had gone to great lengths to pull me back to this house, to their lies. But why? The ride home was quiet. Eric didn't speak. I didn't need him to. My mind was already working through the pieces, connecting dots I hadn't even realized were there. The strange urgency to get me home, the way they avoided my questions, how they had acted like everything was normal, as though I wouldn't notice the cracks in their story. My father, supposedly on the brink of death, now nothing more than an actor in their twisted game. When we reached the house, the atmosphere was stifling. My mother, perfectly composed as usual, was sitting in the living room with Elise, their expressions blank. They were waiting for me. But for what? I felt a surge of anger rise within me. This was all a show, a performance meant to make me feel guilty, to make me feel like I owed them something. They didn't care about me. They didn't care about the family I thought we were. They cared about one thing: money. "Where's Dad?" I asked, my voice trembling with frustration as I stepped inside, my gaze sweeping over the familiar yet now unfamiliar faces. Mom's gaze flickered to Eric, then back to me. "He's upstairs. Resting," she replied, her tone far too calm, too rehearsed. I didn't care about resting. I cared about the truth. Resting, I echoed, narrowing my eyes, or planning his next move. Mom's face faltered for just a moment before her practiced smile returned. "Zerina, you're overreacting. Your father has been through a lot. You need to give him space." "Space," I repeated, my voice rising now. "I've been giving you all space, and you've been lying to me, for God's sake. What's going on here? Why did you really bring me back?" For a moment, no one spoke. The silence hung heavy, as though my words had shattered the fragile illusion they'd worked so hard to maintain. I could see the guilt in their eyes, even though they tried to mask it. "We needed you home," Elise said finally, her voice soft but firm. "You're part of this family. We need your help." "Help," I spat. "You want my help, or you want my inheritance?" At that moment, everything clicked. My stomach churned as the truth settled in. This wasn't about family. This wasn't about love. This was about the $8.2 million sitting in a trust, waiting for me to turn 30. It was all about the money. They needed my inheritance to bail them out, to fix their mess. My father's health was just the bait, the hook to reel me in, and they had used everything: my love for them, my desire to believe they cared, to trap me. "You lied to me," I said through gritted teeth. "You didn't want me here for my support. You wanted me here for my money." Mom flinched, but her expression quickly hardened. "You don't understand. Zerina, this family has worked too hard to let it all fall apart. We're doing what we have to do." I laughed, bitterly. "What you have to do? You've been lying, manipulating, and now you're using me as your pawn. I'm done playing this game." I turned to Eric. "And did you know about this? Did you know that they were willing to sacrifice everything just to get me here?" Eric met my gaze, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes, a flicker of guilt. He hesitated, then nodded, his face pale. "I didn't want you involved in all of this, Zerina," he said quietly, "but we're in deep, and there's nothing we can do without you." "No," I said firmly, shaking my head. "There's something we can do. It's time I stop being your victim." With that, the decision was made. I had to act. I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. It was time to expose the truth. Time to bring everything into the light. I turned to face my family, my heart racing. "You've made a huge mistake, and I'm going to make sure you pay for it." The next steps were clear. I would gather evidence, expose them for who they truly were: manipulative, greedy, and willing to do anything for money. But this time, I would be in control. I would use their game against them, and I would win. I paced back and forth in the living room, every muscle in my body taut with anger and betrayal. The truth was finally out in the open. My family had used me, manipulated my love for them, all for one thing: money. They had gone to unspeakable lengths to bring me back, pretending my father was on his deathbed, all to get their hands on the inheritance I would receive on my 30th birthday. But that wasn't going to happen, not while I had breath in my lungs. Eric was sitting on the couch, looking like a man who had already resigned himself to fate. His face was pale, eyes hollow. He wasn't even trying to pretend anymore. "Zerina, this isn't how we wanted things to go," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't understand how bad it really is." I stopped pacing and turned to face him. "No," I said, my voice cold, every word deliberate. "I understand exactly what's going on. You've all been lying to me, using me, pretending to care about me. about this family. When all you care about is saving your own skin, the only reason you wanted me here was because of the money." Eric didn't answer. He just looked at me with those empty eyes, as if he had nothing left to say, as if everything had already been said in the cold silence that had filled the room when the truth first came out. "Tell me, Eric," I continued, my voice rising, "did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I was so stupid that I wouldn't see through your pathetic lies? I came back because I thought my father was dying. I thought I was doing the right thing. But this is a betrayal of everything I ever believed about this family." Mom stood from her seat near the window, her perfect composure faltering for the first time. "Zerina, please," she began, her voice trembling slightly, though she tried to cover it up. "You don't understand. We needed you. We needed your help. We're in trouble. The business. It's all falling apart, and we can't fix it without you." Without me, I shot back, my hands shaking with fury. "You didn't need me. Mom, you needed my inheritance. That's all this was. And you know what? You still want it. You still want me to hand over my future to you. You want me to fix your mistakes, to bail you out of your mess. But I'm done. I'm done being your pawn." Eric stood up abruptly, his frustration finally bubbling to the surface. "You think this is easy for me?" he snapped. "You think I want to be in this position? I've had to watch Dad destroy everything we've worked for. I've had to watch him burn through money like it was nothing. And now, it's on me to fix it. You think I didn't try to do this on my own? I didn't want you involved in all this. But we're at the end of our rope. We don't have a choice." "Too bad," I replied, my voice dripping with disdain. "Because I'm not going to be the one to save you." Mom looked at me then, and for a split second, I saw something that resembled guilt in her eyes, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by the same cold calculation that had always been there. "We're family." "Zerina," she said, her voice soft and pleading, "we need you." "No, Mom," I replied, shaking my head. "What you need is my money, and I'm not giving it to you. Not now, not ever." There was a long pause. The room filled with tension. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. My family, the people who were supposed to love me, had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. "I've had enough," I said finally, my voice steady and unwavering. "I'm done. This is where it ends. The truth is out now, and there's nothing you can do to change it. You've made your bed. Now you lie in it." Eric's face crumpled, the weight of everything he had done finally catching up with him. But I didn't feel sympathy. I felt nothing but anger. Anger at the lies, at the manipulation, at the betrayal. I turned to walk out, but before I could reach the door, Mom spoke again. "You're making a mistake. Zerina," she said, her voice shaky. "This will tear us apart. Do you really want to destroy the family I didn't turn around?" "It's already destroyed," I said, my voice cold. "You did that, not me." And with that, I walked out, knowing that the battle was just beginning. I had exposed their lies, but now I had to make sure they faced the consequences. The family I once knew was gone, and I was ready to fight for my own future. I wouldn't let their greed define me anymore. 3 weeks later, as I sat in the conference room, watching the legal team finalize the details of my family's impending fall from grace, I couldn't shake the sense of finality that had settled in. My family was facing the consequences of their greed, and I was the one who had exposed it all. It was hard to believe, even now, that I had been the one to turn everything upside down, to drag their dirty secrets into the light. But as I watched them unravel before me, my father in jail, Eric and Mom in the process of plea deals, I knew it was the right thing. I had spent the past few weeks coordinating with the authorities, ensuring that the restitution fund I set up would benefit the investors and contractors who had been swindled. I had spoken to countless victims, seen their devastation firsthand, and had worked tirelessly to get them the compensation they deserved. The enormity of the situation hit me all at once. My family's empire was built on fraud, lies, and manipulation, and I was determined to help make sure no one else suffered because of their actions. But it wasn't just about the victims. It was about me, too. It was about reclaiming my life. I had always believed that family was the most important thing, that loyalty, love, and support were the pillars of what made us strong. But I had been wrong. My family hadn't been strong. They had been broken, consumed by their own desperation. They hadn't cared about me. They hadn't cared about anyone but themselves. Sitting in that conference room, I looked at the papers in front of me, signed and ready to be filed. It was a decision that marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The inheritance, everything my grandfather had worked to protect for me, would now be used to make things right, to rebuild what my family had destroyed. But it wouldn't be mine to enjoy alone. I wasn't going to let it be. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the skyline of London, the city that had once felt like a dream to me, a place where I had fought tooth and nail to establish my career, now felt like home again. I was finally free from the shackles of my family's lies. I had taken my inheritance and used it to help others, people who had been hurt by the same greed that had consumed my family. But now, it was time for me to build my own future. No more secrets, no more manipulation, just me and the life I had fought for. The phone buzzed on my desk, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was Marion, my mentor, the one person who had always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. "Zerina," her voice came through the speaker, steady and reassuring. "I've been following everything what your family did, what you've done, and I have to say, I'm proud of you. You've proven that you have integrity, and now it's time for you to start using that to build something real, something that's yours." I smiled, the weight of her words sinking in. I had built something real, something I could stand behind. It was time to take that first step into a new chapter. "I'm ready," I said, my voice steady for the first time in months. "Let's do it." And with that, I hung up the phone and picked up the papers in front of me. It was time to move forward, to create something that wasn't tainted by lies, something that would stand the test of time. I wasn't just reclaiming my inheritance anymore. I was reclaiming my life, and for the first time, I felt like I was finally in control. The next morning, I walked into the office of my new venture, Zerina Turner Designs, a sustainable fashion line focused on ethical production and fair labor practices. It wasn't just a business. It was my ascension of independence, my commitment to doing things the right way. As the days passed and my business began to grow, I found a new sense of purpose, and in the quiet moments, when I would reflect on everything that had happened, I realized that this new beginning wasn't just about building a career. It was about finding peace within myself, about knowing that no matter what had happened before, I was capable of creating something better. And as I looked out over the city, I knew one thing for certain: I was no longer trapped by the past. My future was mine to create, and I would do it with integrity, with honor, and with strength. The past was behind me, but the future, my future, was all ahead. This story serves as a powerful reminder that the path to freedom and success often requires us to confront the harsh truths in our lives, even when those truths come from the people we love most. Zerina's journey is one of self-discovery, strength, and ultimate empowerment. She teaches us that we must not allow manipulation, deceit, or the fear of losing what we've worked for to control us. Sometimes, the greatest act of courage is walking away from a toxic environment, whether it's family, work, or society. True peace comes when we are honest with ourselves and choose to live in alignment with our values and integrity. This story is a work of fiction created for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to attack or defame any individual, family, or organization. Any resemblance to real persons or events is purely coincidental. If this story moved you or sparked a thought, please let us know by commenting below. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions help us create more stories that inspire and entertain. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching and being part of our community.